Hey everyone, moving on to chapter 7. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about parents and involving parents in the play therapy process. So we're going to talk about how to interact with parents and some do's and don'ts and kind of some guidance there. So just a minute. All right, so parents as partners in play. Parent information can provide a more complete picture of what's going on in the child's world. So obviously we always want to meet with the parents. It doesn't change the approach or take away from getting to know the child within the play relationship, but it can help us kind of understand some themes in play and some other issues that maybe the child needs to work on. So the child-centered approach is focused on the self-actualizing tendency of the child. Therefore, the presenting problem does not change the approach. So that's important to remember. So while information is important so that we can better understand the world of the child and be there and really connect with them, it doesn't really change the way that we approach the child. So we need to be careful also that, because while information is helpful, it can skew the perceptions of the therapist if they lose sight of the specific child's communication in the relationship. And children should have appropriate informed consent when the parent is meeting with the therapist. So we're going to get into this a little further in the chapter, but obviously the child cannot see you without parental consent. The parent is the one that gets to make the decisions about the child's care. But we are going to let the child know when we're meeting with parents and kind of what we're going to talk about. So in a developmentally appropriate way, to maintain the trust of the child. Must parents also be in therapy? Parents are partners in helping their children thrive, and so filial therapy is the preferred method so that they can be agents of therapeutic change in their children's lives. So filial therapy is play therapy with the parents as the play therapist. So it's an approach to play therapy that involves training the parents so that they can be partners in play. Looks like I didn't finish the last line there, but play therapy can be effective on its own is what it's supposed to say. But the most effective would be if the parent learned how to become a play therapist and engaged in some play therapy with their child, which makes sense because the parents are the most important people in the child's life. So, but that being said, it would not hurt the parent to work through some of their feelings, see a therapist, and maybe work through some of their frustrations on their end of things. That would not do anything to hurt the relationship with the child. Parents as partners in session 1. So the first session is alone with the parent to protect the child from the possible negative descriptions of why the child is starting therapy. Parents may feel hopeless, frustrated, or at their wits' end. So we don't want them to bring up all those issues in front of their child in that first session. So the goals include building trust, responding with empathy, and focusing on the importance of the therapy and goals. So when we're working with the parent, we're going to be super understanding, empathetic, responsive, and available to the parent. We have to build, obviously gather trust with them, build trust with them. And the first session is all about providing parents with information on what play therapy is. So explaining to them that the toys are their words, that the child's language is play. And you can even take the therapist to the playroom to show the parent the toys in the space. It'll help them feel a lot more comfortable and build trust in you. If they don't have trust in you as a therapist, then they're likely not going to bring their child, and you cannot help them or make a difference. So yeah, just letting them know that play therapy is a little bit different. You're also going to let them know, the limits to confidentiality and different things like that. And you can prepare the parent. So you can prepare the parent for the child's hesitation or clinging in the waiting room and what to do if that happens. So the child might be nervous the first time they come to the playroom, and you can just, tell the parent that you're going to take the lead and that, they can just sit back and let you do the talking. And then child-specific questions and concerns. So Are there specific fears, allergies, health concerns, or other major issues about which we might need to know? So obviously you want to know those different things before they go in the playroom. You can also tell prepare parents for, to let them know that the child should wear like comfortable clothes, that they don't mind getting a little bit dirty because they're going to be playing in the playroom and using paints and sand and different things like that. So explaining play therapy to parents is one of the most important things that a play therapist can do to help get buy-in from the parent. And if the parent thinks that all you're doing is playing, you may not get anywhere. So it's important to say that yes, it's a structured play environment that is child-directed, and that by allowing the child to self-direct and make decisions in the playroom, they're working through their feelings so that you can share that as a therapist, your role is to facilitate growth through a positive relationship and by reflecting feelings and providing a safe space for that child to reflect and process and grow. So, and you want to make sure that you're very specific about describing the intentions and objectives of play therapy so that they don't think that you're just playing in there. So here's an example. I know you're concerned about Lisa. She seems to have a difficult time coping at home and at school with the divorce and other children. In the process of growing up, most children experience difficulty adjusting at some time. So some children may need more help than others in some areas and less help in certain areas. Children have a hard time sitting in a big chair like the one you're sitting in and talking about what bothers them. They don't know the words to describe what they're feeling inside or what they're thinking. So sometimes they act out and show how they feel. In play therapy, we provide toys, and I'll show you the playroom in a few minutes, for children to use, to say with the toys what they have difficulty saying in words. In the play therapy experience, toys are like the child's words, and play is their language. When children communicate or play out how they feel to someone who understands, they feel better because the feelings have been let go or released. You probably experienced the same thing when you're bothered or worried about something and told someone who really cared about you and understood, then you felt better and could handle things better. Well, play therapy is like that for children. They use dolls, puppets, paints, or toys to say what they think or feel. Therefore, how children play or what they do in the playroom is important, just like what you say is important. In play therapy, children learn how to express their thoughts and feelings in constructive ways, to control their behavior, to make decisions, and to accept responsibility. After the play therapy sessions, if you were to ask Lisa what she did, she'd probably just say she played. And if someone asked you what you did here today, you would probably say, we just talked. But what we've talked about is important. And what children do in the playroom is also important. They work through their problems with the help of the counselor. So sometimes children are unaware at the moment that something is happening in the playroom, so they don't have anything important to say. Sometimes it's easier for children to explore feelings, especially their fears or anger, with someone who can be objective and accepting than it is with parents or teachers. Therefore, it's best that you refrain from asking Lisa what she did, what happened, or if she had fun. So that's kind of covering the confidentiality piece. The time in the playroom is a special private time for children. They shouldn't feel as if they have to give a report to anyone, even their parents. Play therapy sessions with children are confidential, just like counseling sessions with adults. I want to respect Lisa just as much as I respect you as an adult. Therefore, I'll be happy to share with you my general impressions and to offer suggestions, but I'm not free to tell you specifics of what Lisa says or does in the playroom. I'll share with you general information I think you should know. If you came to me for counseling and shared something you were concerned about, I would not later tell your spouse or employer. Our time together would be confidential. So when Lisa comes out of the playroom, it would be best if you didn't ask how things went or if you had fun. Just say, hey, we can go home now. Sometimes Lisa may take a painting or drawing home with her. If you praise the painting, she may feel like she should make other paintings for you. So it would be best if you just just to make comments about what you see in the painting. You use lots of colors. There's some blue and green and a lot of brown all the way across the bottom of the picture. Because paints can sometimes be messy and the playroom floor may have sand spilled on it, I suggest you let Lisa wear some old play clothes that you won't mind getting soiled. Please don't get upset with Lisa or surprised if she has paint smeared on her hands or arms. Most children get some paint on them when they paint in the playroom. The paint is totally washable, so just to let you know. And some children really enjoy the freedom to be messy with paints, and that can be part of the therapeutic process. I'm sure you're wondering what to tell Lisa about coming to see me. You may tell her that she'll be coming to be with blank in this special playroom every week, where there are lots of toys for her to play with. If Lisa wants to know why she's going to the playroom, you can tell her something like, things don't seem to be going very well for you at home, and sometimes it helps to have a special time for yourself to share with a special person. So this was an example of kind of what you can say to parents. You can use this as a script if you're doing play therapy. I suggest, though, if you're going to use play therapy, to get some extra training on this. Down at UNT maybe is a good place to go. But this is a really good kind of example script. As you can see, because in the first paragraph, it talks about, how children express themselves. The second paragraph is a little more about, the children's self-expression and why play therapy works. You're kind of comparing the play session to an actual counseling session so that it helps them understand, kind of how the play therapy session is just as important as an adult counseling session. And also talks about like some of the things that they learn, like controlling their behavior, making decisions, accepting responsibility, things like that. And also the next paragraph kind of warns that the child's not really going to know that necessarily something important was happening in the playroom. So they're not going to tell you, oh, I had a breakthrough on such and such issue. They don't have the verbal capacity to do that anyway. But, it's setting them up for when the child says, oh, I just had fun in there. The fourth paragraph kind of outlines confidentiality and the importance of that and how the parents can respond to the child. And the fifth paragraph talks about not praising any paintings that were created in the playroom, which is an important thing. And then the last paragraph is talking about, kind of what they should wear and to warn them that they may get a little messy. So I'm not going to go over this separation script, but this is another script to help them prepare for separation. Actually, I will just go ahead and read it. So this is how you can prepare them for their first session. So you tell the parents this. So you could even give them a handout with this to use. You couldn't give them to use this, but you could say, when children come here for the first time, they're sometimes reluctant to go with me to the playroom because this is a strange place to them and they've never seen me before. Most children, though, are quite eager to go see the playroom. When I come to the waiting room and introduce myself to Robert, I'll say, we can go to the playroom now. It would be helpful if you say, fine, I'll wait here and I'll be here when you're finished. This helps the child understand that they have someone to come back to and that the parent is waiting and that they'll be there. Please don't tell Robert to behave any certain way in the playroom. If Robert is reluctant to go to the playroom, I'll be patient with his reluctance and reflect his feeling. He may need a minute or two to decide if he's willing to go in the playroom. During this time, I hope you'll just sit quietly and allow me to do all the work. I'm comfortable with a child's reluctance to go to the playroom and believe we will get to the playroom. It may just take a few minutes. If after several minutes Robert's still reluctant to go, I'll ask him to walk down the hall to the playroom with us. I'll ask you to walk down the hall to the playroom with us. When we get to the door of the playroom, I'll let you know if I think you need to go to the playroom. If I should ask you to go into the playroom, just go right in, sit in the chair, point to, and watch. If Robert wants to show you toys or interact with you, then I will respond for you. So this is setting up that, if the parent comes to the playroom, that they just need to kind of sit back quietly, and that, the therapist will do all the heavy talking, and not to give the child directions like, don't do this, behave this way, giving the child instructions. And this is preparation for parents continued. So warn parents that they may hear loud noises from the waiting room and that is okay. Let parents know that they should schedule a time to talk that's separate from the playtime to talk. Sometimes parents want to talk right after, so you would tell them that in the first session as well, that they should schedule a time. And if there are medical issues that emerge for parents, always encourage them to see a pediatrician to address those concerns. In the parent interview, as we mentioned before, empathy is key. It takes a lot for parents to get help. So remember, it's a time commitment, a financial commitment, and it's very humbling. It's not the easiest thing to do. The parent is usually lacking confidence, they're worried, or they're almost at their breaking point. The best course of action is gathering information with great empathy. Make no suggestions. Explain play therapy to the parent. And there's another sample interview on page 137 if you want a script for that as well. So, ethical issues. When working with children, it's imperative to remember that while the child may be the focus of treatment, the legal guardian is the client from a legal and ethical perspective. This is simply because the presumption of the state is that minors are legally incompetent. So this means that children are not considered to have the legal capacity to consent or refuse services, or the right to obtain and retain privilege in regard to confidential information. It's the legal guardian, which is most often the parent, who's the holder of these rights. This can make the legal and ethical aspect of counseling children occasionally ambiguous for all involved persons. While we train parents that will uphold confidentiality of the child, this means we won't share specifics. However, we need to remember that a parent has a right to progress updates, general information, and even treatment notes if requested. Remember, the parent is the client. We are setting up the stage for a relationship that respects the confidentiality of the child, and we want to uphold that as much as possible, but we do need to give them progress updates and information so that they can best serve their child as well. And they also have the right to withdraw treatment for their child at any time. And we need to keep parents as partners in the process, as they're our allies to help in the treatment of their child. Informed consent is complicated. Children need to be informed in a developmentally appropriate way about the limits to confidentiality and the nature of the relationship. This is going to vary based on the age of the child. Children do not have the legal right to consent to treatment until they reach the legal age of consent. Therefore, their parents are technically legally the clients. It's important to let the child know you'll be giving general progress update to parents, but you will let the child know when that's happening and share the content with them and give them input so as to give as much control to the child as possible. To the extent of this is, of course, dependent upon the age and developmental level of the child. You need written consent from a legal guardian to engage in play therapy with the child, so they need to sign paperwork stating it's okay. And if there's a custody agreement due to divorce, get a copy. Both parents have the right to information about their child unless there's a custody agreement that prevents it. If you're in doubt, get a copy of the agreement. Otherwise, parents have a right to the information of their child. In the case of a psychiatric referral, so psychiatric referrals and hospitalization occurs when a child is homicidal or suicidal if they're in danger of hurting themselves or others. It's important to hospitalize high and moderate risk children in danger of harming themselves. If parents don't get on board, we call Child Protective Services, or the Department of Family Protective Services here in Texas is what that's called, to encourage compliance with hospital recommendations and other services. We should know our local hospitals and, if possible, refer clients to child-friendly facilities. Questions we might want to ask to create a referral list include: what are your credentials? How do you work with children under 10? What assessments do you use for children? And is there a playroom? Not every emergency room is the same, and we want to try and send children to the most child-friendly place as possible. All right, so that is all I have for you in Chapter 7, and I hope you have a great day.